Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel once before. Now, these guys are another relatively new addition to the Hong Kong beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves in that short lifetime. And if people were to ask me about these guys, I would say that they are pretty solid all round. They do a variety of different styles and their beer has always been pretty solid in my experience. Now, the first review that I did from these guys, and thus far only review, is one that appeared only a couple of videos ago, and that was something at the bigger, darker and more malty end of the spectrum, but I have to say it was pretty impressive. But the one that we're going to have a look at today is a little bit lighter than that. It's another kind of hyped release, I guess we could say as well, and it's one that I've heard very, very good things about, in fact. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to stick to the Kowloon side of Hong Kong. We're going to go to a district called Sanpo Kong, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Deadman Brewery. So this particular beer is called Pineapple Express. It comes in at 10.3% ABV. This one is a New England Hazy, Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and it apparently has been brewed with some Taiwanese pineapple. So yeah, this should be really interesting. Like I said, this beer had a little bit of hype surrounding it, and it's one that I believe they do every year actually, but I was a bit concerned that I was going to miss out on this one, because a number of the craft beer shops around Hong Kong have had delays in the deliveries and things like that, but thankfully I came across a can of this one at City Super, so I decided just to kind of snap it up while I had the chance and make this video for you. But yeah, the last review that I did from these guys, and thus far only review, was the Holy Moly, which was their annual Imperial Stout, and that was really interesting, a very, very quirky beer, but I've tried many things from this brewery before and I know that they're really solid. So you're going to see more reviews from these guys appearing over the next little while of their core beers and some of the other things, so keep your eyes peeled for those. But yeah, for our first reviews from Deadman, I thought we would cover the more hyped beers. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. The Pineapple Express from Deadman Brewery in Sanpo Kong, Kowloon, Hong Kong. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Deadman Brewery before, and we will definitely be adding more to that list in the very near future, because I've got about 4 or 5 cans to have a look at from these guys other than this one. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging systems, or just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things, and that's being added to very regularly, of course, because I'm now based here in the Hong Kong SAR. And do check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, and you know, more and more interesting things keep appearing. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit once again about Deadman Brewery. So, Deadman Brewery, as I mentioned to you already, are based in the Sanpo Kong district of Kowloon here in the Hong Kong SAR, and the brewery was founded back in 2018 by Jerry Ko and Sherman Chan, and both of these guys are Hong Kongers, and they were old school friends that used to play basketball very regularly together. But Sherman had a sports bar in Kwun Tong called The Stadium, and he discovered craft beer through the salespeople that were supplying him, and he was looking just to serve something a little bit more interesting in the bar, and so he started to look a little bit more at the craft beer route and bringing things in from this area. But Jerry, on the other hand, was apparently exposed to craft beer while studying in Canada for his veterinary degree, and this prompted him to start homebrewing, which apparently he used to do on his rooftop. But later on, he bumped into an old friend on a tour of Lion Brewery here in Hong Kong, and This friend was apparently interested in starting his own brewery, and things just went from there. And it turns out, of course, that that friend was Sherman. So these two school era friends were just kind of reunited. So for their brewing project, they chose the name Deadman because they say that everyone in Hong Kong is a dead man walking, you know, just working their arses off. But this plays into the brewery's kind of skull symbol and zombie artwork, which you can see on the cans here, very distinctive of course. And the first beer they produced was the Dirty Pale Ale, and this first appeared back in 2018. So the current head brewer of Deadman Brewery is Jason Lee. Now Jason studied chemical engineering at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and apparently during this course he took a trip to a brewery in mainland China, and it was this that inspired him to become a brewer rather than going into some other industry. But when he got home, he googled beer in Hong Kong and Moonzen appeared, and so he joined them as a brewing intern in the summer of 2017. But he later went on to work for Young Master, where he started on the packaging line and worked his way up to senior brewer. But then he started a brand called CBD Beer in 2020 with his friend Chun Ka Ming, and then he joined Deadman as their head brewer in July of 2020. So Deadman Brewery under him are operating a 500 litre Chinese brew kit. They're producing around 6,000 litres per month, which translates to about 70,000 litres of beer per year. And the beers were originally released in bottles, but they switched to cans in 2020 after purchasing an American canning line. And apparently they are planning to open up their own bar at some point in the fairly near future, although they do open up the little kind of tap room space they have at the brewery every Friday. So that's definitely worth checking out. $300 free flow for the night. So yeah, you are definitely going to get your money's worth. But over the years, these guys have continued to develop new recipes and expand the brewery fermentation capacity and build up their sales. And the main man in that regard is Ashwan Prabhu, who is originally from India, and he's known locally as Deadman Ash. That's just who everyone associates him with. But lovely, lovely guy, and someone who will sit down and talk to you about the brewery at length if you've got any curiosity and things like that. He's the man to speak to. But the Deadman artwork, as we said earlier, is very, very distinctive. This apparently is the brainchild of Jerry, and the brewery workers basically sit down and have a few beers and brainstorm the name of any new beer that they produce, and then the final sketch that Jerry makes is passed on to a professional artist who adds a little bit of colour and just gives it the kind of finesse for the can before the actual beer is released. So kind of cool that one of the original founders is the main man still designing the artwork for these beers. But as of June 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 60 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I said to you earlier, they do a variety of different styles. They probably are one of the most diverse craft breweries here in Hong Kong in terms of the beers that they release. But yeah, that is everything I can tell you about these guys for the moment. If you want to learn more about them, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that's that for the brewery history section. I can take my breath back now because I felt I was losing it there. But yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the beer itself. So, like I mentioned to you earlier, this one comes in at 10.3% ABV. It's a New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. And it's also brewed with a little bit of Taiwanese pineapple in it, or not a little bit, I think quite a lot. But yeah, you can see the can on this one. It is 330 millilitres, which is standard for Deadman Brewery, of course. Plain silver top on the can there with that lovely kind of purple ring pool. I think most of the Deadman cans actually have some sort of coloured ring pool on it, but yeah, you can see the artwork on this is pretty interesting, of course, as you're always going to get. I might need to keep this can actually, since it's the first can that I'm reviewing on the channel from Deadman. But it tells you a wee bit about the beer on the side here. So it says, this triple hazy pineapple IPA is about to rock your socks off. Never has there been a beer that tastes so complex and fun. Brewed with Taiwanese pineapple, express air mailed to us. We made sure it was super fresh and juicy. Enjoy this with some fish taco and go and pick up your socks after. So yeah, interesting. I have to say I'm not going to try the fish tacos because I can't eat fish, but yeah, I would certainly have some of the beef tacos, and these guys do have a taco night at the brewery every so often. So if you see adverts for that on their social media, I will tell you straight away that is most definitely worth checking out actually. But yeah, 10.3% New England Hazy triple IPA with this one with some Taiwanese pineapple in it. There is nothing not to like about that. But I'll just let you have a wee look at that side of the can there. There you can see a wee bit more of the Deadman artwork there. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what we have. So yeah, if memory serves me correctly, I think I paid 50 Hong Kong dollars for this can, which is about £5 sterling, maybe €6, $7 American, something like that, if I'm remembering my exchange rates properly. So yeah, as I've said before, beer in Hong Kong is a little bit more expensive, but wages are a bit higher. You don't pay tax very much and stuff like that. So yeah, it's one of these kind of give and take things. But yeah, quite happy to pay that to support Deadman Brewery, of course. Makes no difference to me because I do enjoy the beer. But yeah, anyway, we've poured the full can into the glass at the moment, and you can see the beer poured with pretty much no head. There was just a little bit of a kind of white creamy coloured foam on the surface there, but that has faded away to be absolutely nothing. So that's quite interesting, and I know this beer has been packaged very, very recently. It says yeah, the 25th of June 2025. So yeah, that is pretty damn fresh, I have to say. Only like a couple of days old. Can't complain about that. But yeah, anyway, you can see this beer has poured pretty much as you would expect from any New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA, regardless of whether there's fruit in it. So yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. And that can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer, of course. And it's not often that you have to care about adjuncts when it comes to IPAs, of course, but this beer is one of the exceptions because there's pineapple in there. But for me, this beer is a lovely kind of very, very rich yellow, sort of mango juice colour, I would say. So yeah, the malts will be playing the main role in that, and I think the pineapple will probably affect the colour of it to some degree. But yeah, all in all, it looks pretty nice. The appearance of this one is what you'd expect. There's not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. In fact, almost nothing. I'm not even seeing any bubbles on the side sticking there. Nothing going up toward the surface of the beer. But all in all, I think it looks pretty nice. In terms of the haziness in this beer, you can see that it does have a good degree of opacity to it. Remember, the haziness in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. And yeah, that again can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. But yeah, it's pretty much as you would expect from a pineapple New England triple IPA, this one. So nothing else really to say about appearance, as I've said. Brain is a little bit tired in this video in case I'm repeating myself, but yeah, this beer looks great, and it is as you would expect of the style. So let's go on to the aroma section of the video and examine that for you. But I have to say, I'm very, very curious about this one. So let's have a look. Oh, now I'm going to say straight away, this beer is actually very, very mild in terms of its aroma. I thought this would be quite a bit more punchy and a bit more aggressive almost in its aroma, but it's actually very, very reserved. I mean, the pineapple does jump out of the beer at you quite readily, but still, it's I think it's just not what I was expecting this beer, in all honesty with you. It doesn't quite have that big bright hoppy green component that you're going to get. You do get some of the breadiness and the wheatiness and stuff like that underneath, and you do have some of the kind of malty sweetness and stuff in there, but really it's I think the pineapple in this one is really suppressing a lot of that, because whenever you add fruit into a beer as an adjunct, it's always going to suppress the hoppy green component of it, and that of course is especially important when it comes to more hop forward beers. like IPAs. So yeah, this is very, very quirky, and this is a beer that's certainly got me thinking about what's going on, and that's what you want after 4,000 beer reviews. You want beers that are going to make you think a little bit when you're tasting them. So let's have a closer look at this aroma and see what we can get out of it by breaking it down a wee bit more. So yeah. So obviously the first thing that jumps out of this one at you is the big sort of oily, juicy, pineapple-y character. And it's actually a little bit more, it's almost like a slightly darker pineapple than I'm used to. I'm used to pineapple being quite a little bit sweeter than this, but I have to say I quite like that. Underneath that, of course, you start to get the malty side of the beer. So for me, there's a little bit of a wholemeal, brown bready bread crust in this one. So yeah, that is the backbone of the beer. There's little touches of woody character in there. Yeah, wholemeal brown bready bread crust, a little bit of woodiness, a little bit of cracker, sweet brown bread, a little bit of sweet white bread in there as well. I think there's a wee bit of wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose as well. And I think there could be a little touch of oatiness in this too. Although I'm not sure about the oats, because I think this is obviously, this beer is saturated to hell with the pineapple, of course. So the focus with the name like Pineapple Express, you'd expect that, in all honesty. But yeah, I think the pineapple with this one is so powerful that it's suppressing a lot of other bits of the aroma. I think we're going to get more complexity out of the actual flavour of this beer than the aroma right enough. But certainly you can smell a little bit of oaty creaminess, and there's also a wee bit of like a Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch coming out of this one, which is of course the alcohol, and at 10.3% ABV, that is to be expected. So yeah, the malty side of this beer is quite nice. You do get a little bit of yeasty character in the back of your nose as well, and that gives you a little bit of like brown bread and white bread and stuff too. So yeah, curious to see how that's going to develop in the actual flavour of the beer. Yeah, interesting stuff, really quirky and unusual aroma. And for me this is interesting because the beers that I've tried so far from Deadman have always been quite true to style. This is the first one that's kind of, well, the stout in fairness was the Holy Moly that we had because of the spruce tips and stuff, but this one, I was expecting like a New England triple IPA with a little bit of pineapple added into it. Not something where the pineapple is like, you know, almost the main focus in a sense, but you know, with a name like Pineapple Express, that potentially could be expected. Anyway, yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of this beer then. So, for me, the green component in the aroma here is actually a little bit harder to detect, and this is always going to be the case if you add fruit into beers and adjuncts. It's always going to suppress that green component, but still, you get a little bit of earthiness in there. You get a little bit of herbal character. And there is quite a little bit of floral note in there. I want to say there's potentially a little bit of pine resiny dankness in the beer as well. But yeah, a little bit of pine resiny dankness, a little bit of more floral aromatic spice as well. And there is quite a wee bit of grassy, citrusy character at the front of the nose as well. But as I say, the big quite oily pineapple just saturates all of that and pushes it back a little bit. So you have got to search quite a wee bit for these aromas that I'm mentioning to you now, and that's really quirky. As I say, that's something that I haven't really experienced so far with the Deadman brewing beers. It's been their more conventional IPAs and Pilsners that I've had contact with thus far, right enough. So yeah, this is something we need to keep in mind going forward with the brewery, because we do have a couple of sour beers to look at from them as well. But yeah, interesting aroma from that perspective. Let's round off with a wee look at the fruity side of things then. So as I said, it's kind of saturated with that big oily pineapple, but the more you smell of this one, the more the juicy side of the pineapple pushes its way out. But there's certainly notes in there of like a bit of, I think there's like a bit more of a kind of peachy character in there, maybe even a wee bit of guava actually, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, you do get little bits of apricot and stuff like that as well. But obviously the focus is that big, juicy, pineapple-y character out of this one. So yeah, aroma-wise, very, very quirky and quite different to the other beers that I've had from Deadman so far. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in, but I think it is about time that we taste this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Pineapple Express, a New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA, 10.3% ABV with a bunch of Taiwanese pineapple thrown into it. This one comes to you from Deadman in Sampo Kong in Kowloon here in the Hong Kong SAR. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Ooh, that's nice. That is pretty nice. Yeah, this one really, really is quite interesting because I can't think of another beer in Hong Kong to that would match this one in a way. The only thing that comes close to this is potentially Mango Sticky Mango from Yardley's. So the Yardley's Mango Sticky Mango is of course like a Goza, it's an Imperial Goza, a sour beer. This one is intended to be a fruit IPA, so completely different beer styles of course. But this one, if you like your big fruity intense beers, that's the only thing I can think of in Hong Kong that you could potentially compare this one to. I'm going to say to Deadman, this is really interesting for me because it is so different to the other stuff that I've had from them thus far. So yeah, that's the cool thing. Deadman are doing some really solid beers recently, but they're also showing that they're not scared to experiment a wee bit and do different things. And this is the first fruit infused hazy IPA that I've had in quite a long time, and it's pretty good actually. It's pretty damn good, this one. So big thumbs up to the Deadman guys for this. Yeah, it's not quite what I was expecting. As I say, it's more like the actual backbone of the beer comes across as being a little bit more of an American IPA rather than being full New England or full West Coast. As I've explained before, you get these beers that I would term American IPAs they have some New England character and they also have some West Coasty California character. Usually they're kind of like, 40-60 one way or the other. They'll have a bit of the kind of creaminess and smoothness, if you like, of the New England, but they'll also have a bit more of the sweetness and a slightly bigger bitterness, like the West Coast IPAs. This beer, in a sense, has a backbone that's almost right in the middle, actually. So, yeah, it feels like it's one of these more American IPAs in the middle. Then, yeah, you've got all the fruity characters on top of it, but it delivers and it gives you a nice experience, and that's always the main thing, of course. But let's do as we always do in the reviews. We'll break the beer down and we'll describe it for you a wee bit more in depth and see what we've got going on. So yeah, the backbone of this beer, it's kind of what you'd expect. If you go to the middle third of your palate, then you'll feel the backbone of the beer is this kind of soft wholemeal brown bready bread crust in there. As you move further forward on that little bit of bread crust, you get a little tiny touch of woodiness in there, and you can feel a wee bit of crackery character coming out of the beer above that as well. But on top of that, there is a layer of a slightly drier, more wholemeal brown bread layer in there, and that bread does actually have a little bit of graininess to it, which is interesting. Then above that you start to get the wheaty, more the white bready, the barley malt white bready layer in there. But again, that white bready character almost has a wee bit of graininess to it. And then above that you can feel what to me comes across as being like a more dense, wheaty white bready character there. And as I've said on the channel many a time before, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So with wheat, quite often you get a bit of bitiness further back on the palate and it mellows out further forward. But yeah, the dense white bready character sitting on top of the barley malt notes in this one is quite noticeable. You get a bit of bitiness further back and smoothness further forward. Above that, you get you'd get a little bit of an oaty, creamy note out of this one. I don't think the oats are too prominent in this beer, and it doesn't actually tell you if it even contains oats. It just says cereals containing gluten, so that's probably definitely wheat in this one, but I think there is a little bit of an oat in this as well, because down that middle line of your tongue you can feel that dense, slightly creamy oaty character, and as you move out toward the edges of the palate it stays a little bit creamy and it gives you a wee bit more dryness as well. But in the dead centre of your palate there's a little bit more of a Werther's Original butter candy butterscotchy sort of thing, and that is of course the alcohol side. Pardon me, got a little bit of gas there. That is the alcohol side of this beer. So yeah, I think after saying all of that, we've covered the middle third of your palate in this beer, but it's quite interesting, this one. The sweetness on this, of course, is a little bit bigger, which is what makes me say this is more of an American IPA rather than a straight up New England hazy. So yeah, interesting stuff. Let's go to the back third of your palate, and as I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of kind of wholemeal brown bready character in the base. There's the white bready character above that, and then you can feel a bit of the wheaty bitiness at the top there. But yeah, the back of that the base of that back third of your palate, sorry, again, brain is tired, you get that fresh wholemeal brown bready bread crust in there, which just feels that little bit more grainy. There's a wee bit of a kind of crackery character sitting above that too. You've got the wholemeal brown bready character in there, which feels a little bit taller, lighter and more airy. The white bready character above that, which again feels a little bit taller, lighter and more airy. And then on top of that, you have this the kind of wheaty character just creeping over the top of that, and the wheaty side of this beer does give you a little bit of bitiness on that back third of your palate, and above everything else you've got the yeasty side of things coming out. So yeah, let's have a wee look at that yeasty character in the beer. Yeah, so the yeasty side of the beer, it feels like a kind of grainy wholemeal brown bread in the middle with a more dense wheaty white bread around the edge and just a wee touch of bread crust in there. And it's quite interesting though, because it feels like it's almost soaked in pineapple juice or something like that, and it must just be that the pineapple's been added into this beer at a point where it just, you know, takes over everything. It's so sweet and it's so ripe and saturating, it just does that. So your yeasty character on the back third of your palate, it lingers there into the aftertaste, and you get more of the yeastiness into the aftertaste as well. But yeah, as I say, just saturated with pineapple juice for sure. So yeah, interesting stuff. So as I say, you can feel the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But yeah, let's look at the hoppy and fruity side of this beer then. So as I said earlier, when you add fruit into an IPA as an adjunct, it's always going to suppress the green component a little bit. So you can feel that kind of almost, it's, I don't know if sour is the right word. It's like it's not sour in the sense of it being like a sour beer, but yeah, you get that little bit of acidity, I think, from the pineapple in there. So it's kind of sweet in the beginning, it gives you a bit more bitterness into the aftertaste. So it's an interesting interaction on the sides of your palate. But yeah, in the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward, there's a little bit of herbal character, and as you push further forward along the sides of your palate, you get more and more of a floral aromaticity, and there is potentially a little bit of a kind of more dank piney resin in there. But yeah, round the front curve of your tongue, you can feel the beer is lighter and more grassy. But like I say, that kind of strong pineapple juice character is just pushing in and suppressing that green component there. And for me it's really interesting because the pineapple in this beer almost has the kind of potency of grapefruit. For me, grapefruit has always been one of the most potent, grapefruit and lemon are probably the two most potent citrusy fruits. So yeah, this pineapple punch that this beer packs for me is quite unusual but very impressive. So yeah, that's the green component in this beer covered. Let's round off then with a look at the front third of your palate. So yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of wholemeal brown bread in the base there, the white bread on top and a wee bit of the wheaty character in there, and then yeah, the base of that front third of your palate, you have some really nice kind of wholemeal brown bready bread crust in there. On top of that, you have a little bit of cracker, almost some wholemeal brown bread, some white bread, the wheaty character, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the fruity esters kind of roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that. But obviously, as I say, the pineapple is so strong in this one. We'll see what else we can get. But yeah, I mean, in there at the back of that front third of your palate, there's maybe like a little bit of a kind of stronger grapefruit or something like that. And yeah, as you move further forward, there's a little bit of mango and then maybe a wee bit of a lemony, zesty character in that oily bubble. But as I say, the pineapple is just so strong that it pushes against, it just really kind of pushes against everything. So yeah, it's really interesting just how all of that pieces together in this beer. When they say pineapple with this one, they mean pineapple, and it's quite a dark pineapple, if you like. This one, it's got a little bit of kind of bitterness and acidity to it, which I think is quite interesting. So this is one of the first fruit IPAs that I've had in quite a wee while, and that makes it a really interesting experience. So thumbs up to Deadman for doing something a wee bit different. I have enjoyed this one, as I say, but it strikes me as being a bit more of a sipper, if you like, rather than something that you would have a few of. And 10.3% ABV, I think that was the intention. So yeah, really, really interesting, quirky beer, this one. And knowing the guys at Deadman, I think that's what they were going for. So yeah, I think we don't need to say anything more about the flavour of this beer. We can round off then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, there's a little bit of duality going on with this beer, because in the one sense, it's actually kind of light and quite drinkable. It's drinkable in the sense it comes across a little bit like one of these kind of more boozy cocktails. So it's as drinkable as that, but at the same time as a beer, it's quite oily and slick. So yeah, it's really interesting in that regard. But yeah, for me, I'd say maybe top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. Carbonation virtually non-existent in this one, but big sort of slick oily mouthfeel in there. IBU, this beer does actually have a good little bit of IBU lingering into the aftertaste, but I think some of it is coming from the pineapple in this one as well, because like I said, the pineapple has almost a grapefruit-like pungency to it in this beer. So I think there's maybe about 50-ish IBU from the hop in the beer, but then yeah, the pineapple juice on the edges of the palate are really just promoting that particular vibe. But yeah, like we said earlier, the base of the malty side of the beer is it's got a bit of dryness to it, a bit of smoothness, and then a little bit of creamy sweetness on top. Your green component's giving you some bitterness, and then yeah, the pineapple juice that this one has is just kind of saturating everything, and giving you that big sort of boozy, almost cocktail type quality to this beer. So yeah, I find this one really interesting. It reminds me, I'm trying to think what cocktail it reminds me of, but I'm probably just too tired to remember. But yeah, flavour profile wise, this is something quite different, but it is really quite enjoyable if you love your big sort of tropical fruit sours and things like that. So yeah, it's almost, I think maybe calling this one a sour IPA, it reminds me of some of the sour IPAs that I've had in recent times. That wouldn't be too far off the mark with this one. A pineapple sour triple IPA, I think, would maybe be a better descriptor of this beer going forward. So yeah, interesting stuff, definitely. So thumbs up to Deadman for doing a wee bit different, as I said. I think that's everything we need to say about this beer, in all honesty. Mouthfeel wise, it's really interesting. You get a little bit of sourness in the beginning, the fruitiness is very oily, and the whole beer is just like saturated, boozy pineapple, to be honest with you. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Deadman Brewery as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the near future. But in the meantime, this was the Pineapple Express, a 10.3% New England Hazy Triple Imperial, whatever you want to call it, IPA with Taiwanese pineapple added into it, and it was a very nice experience. I'm just surprised at the sheer pungency of this this Taiwanese pineapple, so that's something I need to check out at some point soon. But yeah, till the next time, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, ciao just now, and I'll catch you guys in another review. Make sure you try some Deadman beers because they're pretty damn good. Cheers.